I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. I think people get a little bit comfortable with the virtuality of all of this. And I think misunderstand a little bit about what's going on here. Got to use your go-go voice. Yeah, you're right. My bad. So one of the problems with StreamYard is you can't, whether you have headphones on or not, you can't hear the levels. So it does make it harder. You can't hear yourself. So I appreciate that anyway. So um and I don't want to, because I'm not a tough guy. I don't want to put that energy out there. I don't want to be misunderstood here. But I just would encourage people just to anyway. I don't know how else to better put it right now. But we'll come. So I say all that to say that there were a number of criticisms. I'm gonna start with before I pull stuff up here. So I just happened to be reading again, trying to, because I am still slowly working on the second edition of the Buying Power book. Um, no, 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 no. Um, yeah, yeah, no, I don't want it. I don't want that. What I really want is a what I want for this space is vibrant, at least starting from Black radical argument, analysis, and thought. And I want, and I hope for genuine exchange. It's sometimes hard to tell, are people, are they being funny? Are they just bad with a joke? Am I missing something because it's virtual? Or is it, and then worse, is their argument or question something legit, like a critique we could bring up and have a conversation about? Or is it really just a time waster because they don't really want to say what they want to say and they know that they're not going to ever show up and with humanity exchange personally or directly or elsewhere otherwise. So I don't want to be misunderstood and invite lunacy and people to pull up on me and all this other kind of stuff, like Andrew Magruder, like not what is his name, what did he do, Magruder, Aaron Magruder did years ago with the Boondocks, where he said, look, I don't have an army, I don't have a crew, don't come for me, I don't have that. um and I'm too old now. So anyway, as I'm looking back at this book, I read he's got not only a section on purchasing power, but he has a whole section on anti-Semitism that I think is actually more akin to my argument now. Not, Fanon, Baldwin, others have had interesting comments on Black Jewish relations. There's a great book that I have where I got my favorite quote from Derek Bell about the real nature of Black suffering in a book called Strangers and Neighbors, a collection, an anthology written by Jews and Black folks. I read years ago that exchange that Cornel West had with the big popular, supposedly left-leaning rabbi and all this other kind of stuff. And in many ways, I think they're all disingenuous and missing so many of the important points. They're not being fully honest. And I think I got to that in my Kanye thing more than I've seen elsewhere. And I think this gets there more, but a lot of the response has been kind of crazy. Anyway, real quick, because I see them, I appreciate you, Jägermeister. Black labor enrichment, 1865, 1890 for more incarcerated workers. Okay, right on. I appreciate that suggestion. And thanks for the super chat. And thanks to Randall Wyatt for the super sticker. We really appreciate you. And please continue to support BPM, Patreon, whatever. We did a members only thing where me, Jackie, and Ear Doctor just should be up on Patreon soon, if not already, for Patreon, and then YouTube member channel members about House of Dragons. Anyway, but but I think my point is that if you want a more honest assessment, I think, of what's going on between Black people and Jews. There are ways to get there than what we're getting, but even in that, some of the criticism I've gotten, I'm gonna pull some of this up here, is just I don't know. I don't honestly, I don't know. So, like, on the one hand, I love the little community we're trying to develop here, BPM, and I want to, I want to honor some of the back and forth. And I'm obviously not right on everything, and I don't have all the answers, Sway. So, but I really don't like the way, honestly, I don't like the way a lot of, and even some of you who claim to be comrades in the chat, I think a lot of you take for granted what I and we are doing here. And I think it's like somehow we've just served ourselves up to be dealt with in a kind of way that I'm not comfortable with, to be honest with you. And again, I've never seen it happen in person. I literally just came back from the other side of the world. People, I say what I have to say everywhere. Jaleel Muntaqeen and that dude is as real as it gets. We could have a disagreement on camera and not go, I mean, what? So if Jaleel can disagree with me without being disrespectful, why would I expect, why can't you all? Anyway, but let's see. I think these are them here. Let's get to some of these here. This one was kind of easy and funny. I don't think I said, if I said that Doug Williams, what I think I was saying was that Doug Williams, what I meant to be saying was Doug Williams was the last Black quarterback to win a Super Bowl, or the first Black quarterback to win a Super Bowl. That would have been the point I was making. Who was the last Black quarterback to win a Super Bowl? Who's won it? Did Russell Wilson win one? I can't even remember now. But that was the point and I definitely didn't forget Mark Rippon, because that's the last time I paid attention like that to that football team. And I quit smoking cigarettes because of the Super Bowl victory he helped deliver. So and I won a lot of money in the Navy. That whole season, I won a lot of money that year. I gambled a lot. I made a lot of money betting on my team. Oh yeah, Michael Parenti his work is and even the late great Dr. James Turner had us read Democracy for the Few as a class, assigned text. So I'm a big Parenti guy, and I support and I think even his son Christian has done some good work. Thank you, Dead Man Animations. I deeply appreciate your Jewish analysis on a lot of these topics. What do you think is a helpful way to get people to have more nuance around Jewish community and whiteness? I honestly don't know. Honestly, I don't know. So I'll even share this story. I had it on the docket to bring up this morning anyway. I honestly don't know. So, and I'll come back to this, but one of the things I think is misunderstood, and I understand it because of my own mixture and background, people make certain assumptions about my biases, and I'm not unbiased, obviously. But what I've done, I'm not really comfortable talking this much about, I don't know, but I've done a lot of work to try to challenge that bias. And the bias simply just starts with, not even for all Jews, it's really just my mother. It's just that simple. So, and once I check for that, that's why I'm saying there is no institutional Jewish response to the Black condition that is akin to my mother's. So it doesn't work for me to say, well, my mother didn't . So that's where it started. You start by saying, well, my mother isn't that way. My mother didn't do that. And then it's like, but that's not an analysis. Long story short, in part because of her encouragement, I just studied and kept within what I think is a Black radical tradition basis to reach certain conclusions that I tried to share the other day on that Yay video. But my point here is that what I think is misunderstood about where my bias is or isn't, is that I'm trying to make Black people be less angry or more welcoming of Jews. And that's not my point. If anything, my problem is that Black conservatives and reactionaries, just like I'm saying about buying power, misuse the history, the antagonistic even history between Jews and Black people, to create a Black capitalist, conservative, reactionary, narrow nationalist response. or analysis. So my point is, what I want to do, if anything, I would want Black people to have a better understanding of the history of Jews and the interaction that Jews have brought. That is, of course, we're talking about European descended Jews, Ashkenazi, all of that specific, I'm not debating the whole, as my man was saying, anti-Kemetic analysis that removes Judaism from Africa. My point, that's not my point. My point is to say that the group popularly understood to be Jews, European descended Jews in this country in particular, and their interaction with Black people, if Black people want to better understand their condition and what they can do to get out of it, they better understand the history and the condition of Jews. And in the same way, I would argue that like Arturo Schomburg told John Henrik Clarke, if you want to know why white folks wrote you out of history, you have to understand their history. You have to study their history before you even study your own. And I'm not, in this case, I'm not advocating that necessarily, but I'm saying Black people aren't getting an honest history of Jews that they're delivering to their own communities. They're not studying it. They don't understand it. They're concocting, I think, a phony conspiratorial narrative, or they're espousing one that they themselves, that actually comes from the whitest conservatives, as Harris points to here. It's the same thing with the reverse hashtag, folks. You're taking a white conservative argument about immigrants and labor and turning it into some sort of Black radical analysis. So it's easy to hate on Jews and just leave it there, but that doesn't explain how Jews got to be in the position that they're in. So then you end up saying, well, we should do what they did. Well, why would we want to do that? Why would we want to sell out our own community, adopt European imperialism, commit genocide and other violence against other communities so that we can protect our own and become a bulwark for the West? Why would, as if all of this was possible within a Eurocentric white supremacist construct. So it's like, why would, so in long answer to really give your $10 its due, in this long answer, I don't know, other than to encourage, as Kwame Ture used to talk about. He said he read a book on Zionism every week or something like that, for at least a time. Study their history. Study world history, I think, in a more honest way than we often are encouraged to, and I think it will become clear. And again, it's not because I'm not on some yay and Black people are anti-Semitic, so we need to better No, I'm saying, in fact, what I'm also saying is that Jews collectively, institutionally, by allowing conservatives among them to make everything about anti-Semitism and Zionism, have made it impossible for honest discussions of these histories to occur, in part because the conservative Jews that would seek to dominate that narrative don't want their role in conservativeness and their complicitness in Western imperialism to be known or to be discussed. Anyway, Dr. Rome Frazier and I, on his Instagram channel, I think later this in November, we're gonna collectively read Neil Gabler's what's the title of his book? The Jews Invented Hollywood, or something like that. So maybe we can expand the conversation there a little bit. But the short answer is, I don't know, man. I don't know how to do that. So and thank you, Anthony D. Don't pay attention to them. Those, my bro, they revisit the misunderstanding you all showed to Professor Small the Elder. Yeah, there's a critique about, we're gonna come back to him. Okay, right on. I'm glad. So we're working on that as well. And then I'm still trying to I gotta get Taiwo to come back and follow up on his readings of Marx. Anyway. All right, so I think we're going to come back to that in response to one of these as well. Uh, Brother Valentine the first says, I slightly disagree with your opinions on hip hop in general. I mostly get my hip hop fix from the underground. As a 46-year-old, I always had the same taste in music, and most of the best MCs are late 30s and up. I think as an intellectual and radical, most MCs aren't saying what you want to hear. For me, I get where you're coming from, but if PE, KRS, X Clan, etc., didn't have dope beats and rhymes, I would not be interested in their music. I probably would root for them because of their content, but I wouldn't be listening to them like I do if they weren't dope. My initial intent was to disagree with what you said about Jay-Z after all this typing. I didn't even mention him, so probably perhaps I agree with you after all. So I think what this is in response to is when I was saying that rappers of my age, I'm 51 now, that they're not allowed in the commercial environment to expand and to grow. So that's why I'm saying Jay-Z sounds just like he did. And he does. He doesn't sound any different in his content than he did on Reasonable Doubt. And he doesn't sound any more sophisticated than he did on Reasonable Doubt either, by the way, which is why Reasonable Doubt is such a classic album. And if he had grown from there, I can only imagine what he would have accomplished. And again, I don't agree that radical artists don't have dope beats. I was just listening to Moo Moo Fresh on the way to drop my girls off this morning. And we also listened to, oh, wow, I just went blank. Moo Moo Fresh and the, what was the other track that I was listening to with them? I just went blank. But the point is, it's not, and then I heard W4 from Dead Prez on the way back, which is a really beautiful, soulful, kind of sad and angering, inspiring track that makes me run up in the White House with the gauge out, click clack, give me my shit back, like that. So radical artists have great beats. It's that they're not heard, and again, what we think we like is really recognition, as Adorno said years ago, and I agree with him. So if you don't hear a song over and over, and you don't get a version of music presented to you over and over again, you'll think that you don't like it, when in fact it may not be the case. It's just a lack of recognition. So it's just that I and you're right. Older MCs don't say what I'm not interested in what they're saying anymore. You know? Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, yeah. It's wonderful to spend time with them, but these mornings, boy, 2 teenage girls getting ready for school. It's a lot. It's a lot. We don't have enough bathrooms. We don't have enough mirror time. Anyway, LeahTV.com. Ye was only talking about the big players in the entertainment world and that he works with. Mostly are United Jews. Not all Jewish people are rich. He was only talking about the group that for ages have pimped and controlled black talent. So what else is new? So my point, Leah, is that is sort of my point. Nothing is new. There's nothing new in what Kanye was saying. There's nothing new in the response that he's getting. The only difference is the scale. So everybody who comes out this way is punished. He just happened to have a lot more, so it looks like he's lost a lot more, but it's basically the same thing. Nothing is, and the analysis is not any better. The response we're getting is not any better. You all see it going around that people are replaying as if he said it for this instance, but the 2013 video from Minister Farrakhan, where he's saying, I defend Kanye and we should defend Kanye and nobody should be afraid of Kanye. And Farrakhan he was saying himself, he was like, what he basically saying? Like, I am God talking to you. So of course I'm not afraid to call them out. And I'm saying the reason people can use that same video and people might mistakenly think that Farrakhan just said that is because the analysis hasn't changed. The argument doesn't change. And what does Farrakhan say in that video clip, by the way? The same thing I said in my argument about on the Ye video. He calls out Abraham Foxman in the ADL. And the ADL, just like they did most recently, called out Farrakhan and the Hebrew Israelites. And none of them have anything to do with none of this, and or the conditions being discussed. So it's like it's the same yelling back and forth at each other. Of course, Foxman and ADL and the new ADL CEO are going to be saying this. And of course, Farrakhan's response is going to be the same. And the analysis doesn't improve. And by the way, Farrakhan's audience, no more than Foxman's audience, is encouraged to learn any more about the realities of these conditions based on the statements and output of either. That's my problem with all of this. So I don't want Farrakhan to sit down. I'm not saying Farrakhan should be telling his folks to sit down with the Jews. I'm saying Farrakhan should be offering a better analysis to his people in response to that might either lead to, see, my argument would be that analysis would lead to people like Kanye either saying nothing, saying something very different that would equally get them canceled for real. And would never have allowed them to grow in the popularity in the first place. Because remember, the same apparatus that is now destroying Kanye built him up. So he was built up on the basis of not saying anything threatening, not offering anything threatening. So what I'm actually advocating would put him in a position where he would, because then he would have been raising questions differently, with a different analysis that would have not allowed him to grow in the first place and would equally get him canceled. So anyway, but that is my point, Lee. We're not, so nothing is new is really what I agree with you on that. Rebel Life says in my again, this is in response to my video on this situation with it's not about Ye. No discussion of Leo Cohen's related comments from the Breakfast Club or MC Search's comments on his ownership of Nas's work, or any of the other stuff relevant to what Kanye was saying about Jews and Black people's cultural production. So again, Rebel Life, I don't know that you've actually paid attention to the video, but that's my point. Would be what I was saying in the video is, and what I'm saying, and what I'm saying, and why I thought to share the little clip from Harris, is that, of course, we could sit here and I could bring up Leo Cohen. Nobody hates Leo Cohen more than me. Nobody has been more critical of, actually, that's probably not true. Plenty of people hate him. But the point is, do I want to call out MC Search and Leo Cohen as if they're the problem? As if they're the cause of Black inequality and suffering? Or do we want to develop an analysis that would explain why Cohen and Search are there and to be in that position in the first place? That goes beyond some mystical Jew. So, of course, in fact, the video, I do discuss why Jews are in position to be in control of Kanye's cultural production, or why the people in charge of Kanye's cultural production are Jews, I should say, to phrase it maybe a little more appropriately and accurately. But I feel like people like Rebel Life and others, they just want to hear Black people condemn and talk trash about Jews. And I get that, but it's not helpful analytically. And that's why we end up with Leah saying we just back to the same thing, nothing different. ADL is Jewish supremacy. This seems like a white supremacist here, but I don't know. Holy smoke, there's a Black Power Media. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry, but imagine if it was first called White Power Media. You have White Power Media. I don't even know why I clipped that. Let me just move on. I don't even address white folks like that. I'm not Pablo says, I'm overthinking this. Kanye is just high on money. That's all. So again, I have few things I find less respectable than those kinds of comments. You're never going to convince me I'm wrong by telling me I'm overthinking something. You're underthinking it. You are underthinking it by an encouraged, induced environment. And that's why we get the same thing, and we're in the same, we're not advancing analytically, never mind materially or anything else. We're just in the same spot. So I'm not overthinking it. You're not thinking enough. Will Mars is back. Now remember, Will had been hating, and then he came back to realize a couple on the last edition that I was right, and now he's back to hating again. And Will, I just don't think you're paying attention, and I feel like nuance and sophistication is your kryptonite. Either that or you're just not super. Maybe that's it. You're just not super. So it's not that it's your kryptonite. You're just not super, man. But as you say here, Will, for you to say Farrakhan has no relevance or meaning to the masses of Black people in America is totally absurd and ridiculous, all caps. That aside, I'm listening to your verbal dissertation. Is that supposed to be, again, verbal dissertation? Is that supposed to be a condemnation, a criticism? And you said you seem basically confirm his main points about the Jews running things and the master-slave dynamic of the relationship between them and the Black community. But I don't understand why in your critique is there always this covert shade towards the minister. He's not your enemy, nor is he the enemy of Black people. The bottom line is what I got from the video is that Jews ain't jacking none of the criticism coming from Farrakhan, Kanye, the Hebrew Israelites, the Kemetic science community, Black academia community, which is where I presume you're from, the Black nationalist community, or the masses of Black people who suffer the brunt of the oppression from these. Oh, damn. Wait, I didn't get the whole thing from these. Which is coming but masses are suffer the brunt of, from those. Oh, Black people who suffer the brunt of oppression from those in power anyway. But this snotty air of my analysis is more sophisticated than these others comes off as a kind of intellectual snobbery on your part, man. Because I can grasp the core concept of what you're saying overall concerning the Jews, but is that shade shit really necessary? Why not throw the shade more overtly at the powerful ones in the Jewish community instead of this tippy-toe approach to critiquing them? Sometimes the critiquing of those in power oppressing Black people just has to be raw because our suffering as a people has been raw. So again, Will, the disrespect of me is it is what it is, but it's, again, it doesn't help you better understand what I'm saying or understand what's actually happening. So what I would say is the exact opposite. The rawness of the suffering can legitimately encourage an initial response of a raw response. But we're talking about a sustained analysis for power. Or at least that's what I'm talking about, or encouraging. And that requires more than just a raw response. And so it's not I have any covert shade for Minister Farrakhan. I have specific points of disagreement with Minister Farrakhan. One is around his support for buying power mythology and Black capitalism. And two, his approach to condemning Jews as part of his analysis of the problem that he explains to his community and his audience. I don't think, as I was saying about Professor Small and others, that approach is the best analysis and the best argument. That's all I'm saying. And then I tried to offer up an explanation as to why I feel that way. So that's all it is. So I know, I get it. A lot of people are like, well, who are you to disagree with Farrakhan? And I get that. Okay. I'm the same guy that had the temerity to, with respect, tell Jalil Muntaqin I don't agree with him. Someone whose analysis and contribution and work I actually far more appreciate and respect than Minister Farrakhan's, if we're comparing the two. So, I mean, I don't know, it's not shade, and it's not that I'm not willing to throw shade at Jews. In fact, if you listen carefully to what I'm saying, I think you could say I'm just trying to be soft or whatever, or snotty, but I think on some level, the sophistication that I'm advocating for is more threatening. And part of what my argument was that I think you're not paying attention to is that raw response of just condemning the Jews doesn't hurt them. And it doesn't hurt their conservative Jewish narrative elite imposed position in defending their work. That's the point I'm making. So the raw response, it plays into uh, um, the existing relationship. It benefits them. So anyway, so I don't, anyway. Um, but if you but so I would say to you, Will, why don't you just make it plain with me? You just got an issue with me, and you have an issue with what you perceive to be my position in the academy or wherever else vis-a-vis the real da 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 da. Why don't you just make it plain and say it? And if it bothers you that much, you don't have to come around this platform. Otherwise, thanks for watching, although I don't think you paid much attention. And you also accused me, Will, somewhere else of something, and I told you to put the timestamp on it because I never said, oh, by the way, I never said Farrakhan. That was the part. I said put a timestamp on where I said Farrakhan has no relevance or meaning. I don't recall that's what I said. What I said was, what I recall saying, and what I would say here is, it's not that Farrakhan has no relevance or meaning. What I'm saying is the conservative Jewish ADL community wants to suggest that he and the Hebrew Israelites have more meaning than they do. And in Black radical political circles, in mainstream political circles, in mainstream Black life, the Hebrew Israelites and Nation of Islam do not have the same level of import and relevance that the ADL wants to suggest they do. I don't think they do. So again, it's not shade for me to say that. It's just, anyway. Okay, couple more here. Black Bolshevik says, this is very true. When the persecution of Jews do resurface, as it usually does, instead of using their positions of power to mediate the issue and educate the other racial groups on Jewish history, whether it be the upsides or downsides of it, they are, for the most part, considering the influence they have, silent on these issues. As false claims are put out against them and anti-Semitism increases, they fade more into the background instead of come to the forefront. Exactly. So, and I think Gabler talks about it. I think we're going to get to this with Professor Frazier on his Instagram. So I'll let you all know when that happens. But I think Gabler is one who talks about this. There are many others whose names I won't remember off the top of my head, but who talk about this point that again, Jews who became prominent in the cultural industries and other industries have never wanted prominence for themselves as Jews. In fact, they have wanted to recede into the fabric of society. This is, in fact, what Harris was saying in that excerpt that Will and others, I think, willfully perhaps chose to sidestep. And don't be afraid of a sophisticated analysis. It's not being snotty. It's not being snooty. In fact, if anything, I'm arguing that the so-called most oppressed masses can be engaged in this sophisticated analysis. And that's why I'm advocating that Black spokespeople who communicate with them more than I do elevate that analysis. Will, and whomever else, and whoever Will might actually even ever be. We don't even know. But the point that Harris is getting at is that when any group, Jews or Black business people, seek solutions to their problem by ensconcing themselves in the apparatus of the problem, of what creates the problem, they become a problem themselves for their own, in this case, Black laborers. And that's why Harris says in the end, it's the Black business class that ends up abusing the Black worker more than even the Jew. I was leaving a little uncomfortable with that suggestion from Harris. But the real point that I think he's right on is that Jews have sought to solve their problems, their very European problems, by becoming part of the European problem as it presents itself to other people. That then sets them in opposition to Black and other groups. Black conservatives seeking a solution to their problem, doing the same thing, end up producing a situation where they themselves are part of the problem as it relates to exploiting Black workers. And I think Harris is right on that. And I think that's why so much of this Black conservative response to the Kanye situation is not helpful. It doesn't help Black people who are the most oppressed, Will, if all you do is say the Jew is doing it all, the Jew is this, the Jew is that. That doesn't help anybody. It's not an analysis, because then what? Then what? All you're saying is the Jew is dirty, so give me your money. That's really ultimately the extent of the analysis. Whether intentionally or not, if the analysis stops there, once you get that little bit of money, as I'm arguing elsewhere, it ain't going to help you. And it's not going to set you apart, and it's not going to change your relationship to the broader global or whatever, even national situation. And in fact, wow, Black radicals, from SNCC to the Panthers to whoever, have been condemned forever for even raising the question of Zionism, much less focusing on it. And the distinction that between Zionism and Jews and Judaism. And yet people like Will would want us to walk back from that to an analysis of it's just the Jew, and as if that is more powerful. Kwame Ture was condemned because he made that analysis. His existence in the United States and elsewhere would have been supported, would have been buttressed relative to what happened to him had he stayed at these Jews. Anyway, by the way, even aside from whatever this back and forth I'm having with it's not just Will, it's with that whole argument. Aside from all of that, I think it's much more interesting to start to ask questions and investigate the questions as to how do different groups of people end up where they end up. Anyway, than just saying they're there because they're whatever. All right. Shanette says, I have questions. I'm slightly confused. In your other video talking about, you talked about the connection of the Jewish people in Hollywood. How does it serve Jewish people to dominate the entertainment industry to stop true Black empowerment? How does it benefit them to center our cause around Black capitalism? I understand how this affects the state, but why would Jewish people care at that time? I preface the questions with the explanation that I know very little about Paul Robeson. This was a wonderful lecture. I just have so many questions. Shanette, I appreciate you. I think this was in response to my presentation on Paul Robeson. Thanks again to Baruch Gottlieb and that whole crew out there, and to Dr. Horn and Shana Redmond, who I expect to be on this platform sooner than later, and others who were there as well. In fact, the brother, oh man, I gotta respond to his email. Yeah, there's gonna be, Anyway. So this is sort of the point I was getting at, that Jews sought benefit, how it benefits, again, and by Jews, I'm talking specifically about a class of Jews, particularly coming out of Eastern Europe, escaping Nazis and whatever other pogroms and other kind of whatever, who were encouraged and given room to create what we now call Hollywood, largely to the extent that Hollywood serves the cultural, political purposes of the United States. So Jews, again, they wanted to deny, Superman as a comic, we got to get Todd Burrows back, Dr. Todd Stephen Burrows back. Superman as a comic is an allegory, a metaphor for Jews who created that comic. A group of people who could hide in plain sight, not out of some necessarily to be devious, but because they wanted to be helpful to a society they thought they saw as saving them from the horrors of Europe. The problem is when you attach yourself to get away from the horrors of Europe, to the horrors of the United States, you set yourself in opposition to the people being oppressed by the United States, and specifically in this case, Black people. So when the broader mission of the United States is to project through its cultural industries Black inferiority, Jews are put to that role. Jews assume the same Eurocentric European views of Black people as any other white person. And I've read sections at least of the Talmud, not the Torah, the Talmud. Jews, just like any other group, are encouraged to see themselves as specific and separate from any other group. Christians, Muslims, every group is taught in their books, especially the books that are meant for the teachers and the real students, that they are separate. You could work with them, you might even like them, but they're not really in line with God the way we are. So everybody is coming into this with their own particular bias and lens, but when they get into this thing called the United States, they got to adjust that lens of self-protection to abuse somebody else. Jews did the same thing. Jews have said the abuse suffered in Europe has to stop. And they have a raw analysis and response, Will. And that raw response is, I'm tired of thousands of years of being blamed for killing Jesus, because that's again where it all really starts. And Marimba Ani has it even better. Urugu has it even better. Judaism don't work for European imperialism. It don't work for the European. I forgot which component it was. It doesn't work for that logic that says go conquer, because Judaism is nationalism. Judaism is matriarchal, because Judaism, as Freud and others have pointed out, comes out of Africa. So this is where Kyrie Irving and Kanye have a point. And my man, when he says we're not being anti-Semitic, you're being anti-Kemetic. I get all of that. I agree with all of that. But Marimba Ani says the European couldn't use Judaism to conquer through the male and patriarchal expansion of empire. So they had to evolve this thing into Christianity one way or another. That's, to me, my favorite part. That's my favorite sort of explanation of why, because I don't believe the biblical stories as history. So the better explanation of how Christianity emerges into the force of empire is because it can be put onto the male and to the man and used expanded that way. Judaism don't work like that. Jews, like, if you're not born to a Jewish womb, you can't get in, or you got to fight your way in. Christianity is like, we come down there, you just got to boom, 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 and you in. So back to Shanette's my response to Shanette. That's what Jews. That's the short history. And I gotta find my articles, because at one point I was looking into I was trying to, a couple of years ago, I was teaching a course on what forms of violence are acceptable in Hollywood, and I still argue that the number one form of violence that you do not see is revolutionary violence. That is violence used as an conscious, organized component of liberation struggles. That's why we don't, even in Woman King and even in Nat Turner film, we don't see white people die like that on film. That's the taboo. And that's why even with all this Jewish control of Hollywood, Jews don't tell the stories of their own armed struggle against the Nazis. And I even found some articles where Jews in Hollywood talked about that. Said, we don't want to tell that story. We don't want to show ourselves as a potentially violent threat to our conquerors. We would rather disappear into the background so we don't have to have that conflict anymore. And if we tell the story of the Holocaust at all, we tell it as in this traditional version that we get now. Nazis are all bad. Jews just quietly walked off to the death camps. And that's why Kwame Ture could even, I get the point, but ignorantly say at one point, if If white folks want to play Nazis, tell them that black people won't play Jews. Because that he was, again, that narrative itself promoted by Jews in the media community is that Jews didn't fight. And that's why Defiance is the only, I think, the only major Hollywood film to ever come out depicting a real, telling a story of the World War II, where Jews are depicted in violent rebellion, in guerrilla warfare. True story. From Belarus, where my mother's people, my mother's father's people come from. So I claim that. They picked up guns, went into the hills, and killed them Nazis. That's what I'm talking about. That's the movie I want to see, goddammit. All this Schindler's List shit. But they don't want to, Shanette, because they don't want to be seen as, they want to fit themselves in and quietly go about their business. That's why, again, most of the Christmas songs that you all sing are written by Jews, which I think is the funniest shit ever. And that's why so many Jews change their name. That's why it's not because of some devious, because they're scared and they want to work within this system. But that unfortunately puts you against the people who are trying to rebel. So, and there's that conflict. Oh, okay, we did this one, right? No discussion of Leo Cohen. Yeah. You please pay more attention. I've hated on them so much, and I've even but anyway. AYR Ramadan. Even if we accept your view of history of Jews being somehow relegated or even forced into banking and finance, entertainment, and media, how that explain the use of those positions to promote negative racist stereotypes of blacks, like the jazz singer Amos and Andy, other examples ad nauseum, redlining, so on and so. Again, that's my point. Again, this is what I'm saying. I feel like I really just feel like if I don't come out just saying the Jews, people just tune me out. First of all, again, don't take my word for it, AYR Ramadan, and I'll do better to look for the sources myself. It's not just in quotes about the history of how Jews ended up in sectors of the economy. There's a history there. You may not be aware of it or want to deal with it, but that's what it is. It's not. Look, and I read all that shit that I know a lot of you have read, The Unseen Hand and all this other stuff written by, I've read the Elders of Zion and all that stuff. I've also read the histories that show who really wrote that and why it was and all that. I read all that stuff. I get it. It's just bad work. It's bad analysis. It's bad history. But this is my point. Just to the last question, of course, that's how I explain once they get into those positions, they're not there to be revolutionaries. They're there to support this thing. And this thing is horrible. So then Jews do get set up. I should go back and find, I think it was 2006, where a Jewish writer for the LA Times was writing this whole thing. And he outlined all the Jews that ran Hollywood and media. And he said, but you should thank us, because without us, you wouldn't have a cultural industry. And he's right. But instead of being thanked, he's just saying, from my point of view, you've just put the target on you, saying, okay, you want to be thanked for producing all this stuff? Well, look at what you've produced vis-a-vis my black family. The jazz singer Amos and Andy and all the other stuff that Ramadan here is laying out quite accurately. That's my point. So you want to be thanked for being in that position? Then you're gonna set yourself up to not just be thanked, to be criticized, even condemned. So again, I am not saying at these, again, choke points in society and the economy, Jews are not in a hostile relationship to black people. I'm just simply saying why. I'm asking why. And it is more sophisticated and deeper than they're Jews. That's just not that. That's just who they are. That's just what they do. I don't remember him dealing specifically with this, but I do, like, if you even just go back and read, when you're reading Black Marxism, Robinson has this whole history of how Europe and European economies and capitalism evolved. It's a lot more fascinating and complicated than whatever. Anyway, I that just popped in my head for some reason, but I don't have any specific memory of what Robinson was saying other than anyway. Okay, here we go again. Back with Will Mars. Okay. First of all, ain't nothing mystical about the so-called Jews. They've been heavily involved and invested in black enslavement and oppression many centuries now. Why not just bring Brother Small on to stretch out on this issue and bring clarity? You always make at the very least interesting points of perspective. So come on, Brother Jared, make it happen. So here we back to semi-praising me again, Will. And again, listen, my man or person. I'm saying Will, but maybe I don't. Will, whoever. This is not personal about Professor Small. This is not personal about Farrakhan or anybody else. But with all due respect, I don't owe anybody anything regarding some invitation to a discussion. You saw what Professor Small says. You can go watch what he says. You could go, if he's written it somewhere, read what he's written. You could go, and then you see what I said, and to complete your own analysis. But I don't know Professor Small particularly. Kalonji had him on the platform. I don't know. And I don't know that he would want to engage in this discussion. He seems quite enticed by the FBA, conservative, all them, the black business community and whatever. So I don't know. But I'm just saying I disagree with what he said on a public platform. That's it. I don't feel like I need to reach out to him or I'm doing him some undue service by saying, okay, here's what he said. We played you the clip, and this is what I said I think is wrong. And to this point about Jews, he does the same thing. If he wants to stretch out what he means by somebody figured out that distribution is the way to control black people, let him do it. He doesn't need me. Let him do it. Because again, by the way, long before hip hop, the music industry and I even looked at this and I mixed what I like, a mixtape manifesto, Will. The sheet music industry back in the 19th century was already a consolidated corporate controlled mess. So it wasn't that the Jews figured out later that controlling the distribution of hip hop is how to get that was long ago known. At the moment, white folks said, wait a minute, I think some of those songs they're singing in the fields are something else. At the minute they said no drums, no banjo, no singing, no quilt making, they were already recognizing wipe out or manage the cultural expression or it will manage your politics. So this whole thing of making it about again, you all make the Jews mystical by this kind of conversation, not me or the so-called Jews, if you prefer to put it that way, if that makes you feel stronger. All right, couple more here. Holly, the exalted empress, in my response to I think in response to my Woman King, I think this is to the Black Film Pitch Meeting. I'm just glad for Regina King. She did a good job misinterpreting those men. And now she can do a better motion picture. Africans need work too. And all I'm saying is that's the Mantan Manifesto, Holly. So you are demonstrating why it is effective. Because the response is don't criticize what black people do, just focus on the fact that black people need to work too. And a sister got a job. Again, that's not helpful. That's not an analysis. And I don't agree, by the way. I don't agree that their work is more important than the damage done by the impact of their media work. I don't agree with that at all. The handful of people that get these jobs in film and Hollywood and entertainment is not worth the tens of millions who suffer materially in part, not because of, but in part because of the messaging that they project. So yeah, Africans need work too, but again, we wouldn't say that. Again, you don't say that to the dope dealer. Like maybe you do. We don't excuse the dope dealer selling to whoever, our own or whatever, by saying, well, they need a job too. Don't hate on them. And then last one here, shadow gesture in response to my last black film pitch meeting, not as funny as pitch meeting. This is the most hateful of the hate. And I actually agree with you, shadow gesture. I think pitch meeting is hilarious. I think it's very well done. The guy that does it is clearly talented. If he's alone in the editing, he's even more talented, because I know being alone in my own editing, it's a lot of work. It's not easy, even for a 5-minute video. In fact, I would say it takes me about, once it's written and recorded, it takes me at least 3 to 4 hours just to edit without a whole bunch of bells and whistles to get a 5-minute video. So I get it. And it is, I don't think I'm as funny as, I don't think what I'm doing is as funny. For at least 2 reasons. One, I'm new to this, and I don't think that this is, I'm not untalented. I think not bad, but I'm not, I got some work to do. But the second thing is, there's another major difference between what black film pitch meeting does and pitch meeting. One, yes, it's a parody or sat. That's not a sat. Is it? I think it's a parody. Maybe it is a set. I can't remember with it. One of them. But the major core difference is that I'm actually trying to impart a critique and an analysis that comes from a different politics in those pitch meetings. So it would be my job. It would be even harder for me to make my message funny, even if I was as talented and had all the resources this guy has. I think it would be harder. It would be another level of skill for him to even in his context, for him to do like a white radical analysis of film in those pitch meetings would be much more difficult to do in a funny way and be funny. So I get it. It's not, it's not as funny. I don't know that it could be as funny. And, but I will continue to work on it. And I appreciate, the hate. So McYagermeister, food for thought. Lupita Nyong'o is the new face of De Beers. I saw that too. That's why I was trying to point out, her stance vis-a-vis. That's why I was saying that shows you how bad the Woman King is. Because even for her, the Woman King was not as radical as Black Panther. And this is a woman who has now happily become the face of De Beers Diamond Mine. The company founded initially way back when by Cecil Rhodes, who my former comrade urinated on his grave. And I've never been more proud of someone I used to be cool with. But good for her. Good for her. I do laugh at my own joke. I think I'm pretty funny. My children don't agree, and my wife only sometimes agrees, but I think I'm funny as shit. And so I do get a kick out of some of the stuff I say. Let me see. Anything else I'm missing here? But keep the comments and the criticisms coming. And I think there's even been more since. I appreciate you, Greg. Thank you very much. Speaking of Black and Jews, where'd you get that last name, my dude? Where'd you get that last name? I know a Black Levy. I know another one. Ooh. That's it. Urine therapy libations. No doubt. That joint was. I think there was a couple. Did I have? Oh, wait, there's a couple things I forgot to get to real quick. You know what? Real quick. So on my way back from The Hague, shout out, I forgot her name. She introduced herself, but I'm sitting on the plane. So I was so caught up in the fact that I was sandwiched between two large human beings. So it was a very uncomfortable flight physically, because I'm no small person myself. And and I'm telling you, when you see the reflection when I was looking at myself with the reflection from the screen on the back of the seat in front of me, it's kind of comical. But as we're getting ready to get off the plane, uh, uh, a woman who, forgive me if I got this wrong, appeared to be as a white woman. Now I know people say I appear to them as white man sometimes, so I don't mean to offend anybody because that's pretty damn offensive. But anyway, and she says shout out her spouse is Max Ziegler, so shout out to Max Ziegler, who apparently is a professor somewhere in Michigan, who was a fan of the platform, and as is she. So thank you very much. I forgot your name. I apologize. I'm trying to explain a little bit of the context why I was a little bit stressed. I was at the limits. My back, my shoulder, my neck. It was rough. But it was. And what was funny was that she approached, as right after you land, and they take off the seatbelts and everybody's starting to get up. She reached back. She said, "I thought that was you." And then her voice kind of carried, because it's kind of quiet on the plane at that moment, and people heard her saying, "Are you the Dr. Ball, Black Power Media? I really like you." And Max Ziegler, that's the name I remembered. She said, "Did you even tell me?" I mean, she might not have even told me her name. She said, "I'm the spouse of, or my partner, or my husband," or something like that. So anyway, and so I said, I was like, "But why?" And it was funny because you could see everybody start to look around, including the people who had been sitting next to me. They start to like, I didn't know I was sitting next to somebody that might be recognized. And then one dude, his face said it all. He turned around and the face said everything. It was, "Who the hell is this? He ain't nobody. I don't know who that is." And let me just confirm what level of celebrity. Anyway, that was funny. So shout out to you and to Max Ziegler. Thank you very much. I did want to quickly bring up this morning the fact that I've been paying attention to. I talk about the Math Hoffa show. Oh, let me tell this story real quick. I'll end the show on a story about. I had one more Black Jewish thing. I'll end the show this morning on that. And unless anybody has a comment or a question or whatever. The remixers are everywhere, but I wasn't famous enough for that dude. That was so fun. I wish I could have captured that. The look was so. He just looked back over his seat. He ain't. Why is she making a fuss? I don't know who this dude is. Anyway, so Math Hoffa is going through this public dispute with two of his former co-hosts, who are claiming that now that he's got this big money deal from Revolt TV, that he doesn't have room and doesn't want to pay them. So 3, including his cameraman, 3 people have left his show or were removed from his show or whatever, depending on whose version. My only thing that I wanted to bring up is that it comes in the context of first of all, remember, for years, people had been telling me I'm wrong. So of course I'm making this about me. People tell me I'm wrong. The new media environment's going to change everything. People can podcast on their own now. Artists can go online. They don't need the music industry anymore. We can all do our own thing. So then why is it, whether it's Joe Budden, whether it's this one or that one, or now Math Hoffa, everybody in the podcast and the YouTube game is looking for that? They're looking for that drop, that. And where does it all come from? The same commercial advertising, corporate consolidated mess that existed previously. So this time they're saying Revolt TV. No, Jared. Revolt TV, that's P. Diddy. That's Sean Combs. That's Black media. Because remember, as we've covered here, he went out and did the buying power mythology a couple months ago. Don't disrespect Black media advertisers. Give us your money too. Da. Well, much like BET, they always leave out the other guy. Andy Schoen, head of Loop Media Studios, Revolt TV co-founder, investor, executive leader, blah, 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 blah. So I just wanted to throw that out there real quick. That was it. I haven't looked into the details of this guy. I just know that on Wikipedia, his link he doesn't have a link on Wikipedia. So if you look for Revolt, his name is just there. You had to go somewhere else to find out who the guy actually is. But this idea that it's black owned, and then again, even if he didn't exist, Puffy is still beholden to a white corporate commercial advertising, so on and so on and so on and so on. And I don't know if Shun is Jewish. But again, my point would be, how did, anyway, you already know what my point is. So that was just a silly, you know. So this is where I'll end. So the last political thing that I've ever, so from the time I was before 18, I'd become convinced of at least a couple of things we've talked about in terms of my dating preferences, politically, et cetera. And one of them is I'm not arguing with white folks or Jews or anybody about racism or black like I'm not interested. I just don't, I've never been interested in that. My mother being an exception, obviously, privately in our home or personally, we would have these discussions and some heated debates at times. But at her request, this is about 30 years now. What year is this? 20. So this would have been at least 20, 25 years ago. Because it's maybe, I can't remember, it's a long, because before I even started working with WPFW in DC, there was the Dorothy Ray Healy show. And my mother and I went on that show. And Healy was a prominent white woman. I'm not sure. Healy doesn't, I don't know if she was a Jew or not, but a prominent white woman, an activist, labor organizer, blah, 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 had a popular show at WPFW at the time. And my mother, this was the last political thing really that she really was ever involved in or attempted to. And this was the one and only time I've ever engaged in anything on this level. And I told her, I'll do this for you. But I told her it's not going to go well. I don't politically, it was a contradiction. I was like, I'm politically opposed to it. And her point was she and a black friend or two had put together a group that they called Blues for blacks and Jews. And they wanted to have a conversation, like in out here in these tree-lined streets, a conversation, a little group that would set right the tension between these two communities. I said I was opposed to it immediately. Said, I'm not interested in that. I don't think it's going to work. It's not practical. If anything, you should have separate conversations, like have a discussion with Jews. Black people have their own conversation. She ended up the group put us in touch with, at the time, the chair of African American Studies at Howard, Russell Adams, and his colleague, Dr. Pam Nadell. So this is in the mid-90s. She was at American University, because I remember I ended up referencing her. And they had this symposium, and Russell Adams basically went up there and said, the problem is because black people are anti-Semitic. And I remember him telling me in the car on the way over there, when I was asking him about Dr. Clark and everything and Pan-Africanism, he said, I don't get into all of that. I only deal with Black America. He said, I'm real 1492 to the present when it comes to Black history. I was like, wow. So he gets up there. Problem is black people are anti-Semitic. Pam Nadell gets up there as the chief scholar and Jew in the meeting, and says basically the same thing, and that whatever. She just recounts the same conservative narrative history of Jews and their interaction with black people. It was total nonsense. Afterwards, I go up to her and I ask her, because I was trying to ask a couple of questions, and one of them was, this whole thing about Jews being enslaved by Egyptians and therefore having this common history with black people. I was like, where is the evidence for this? So I said, I'm studying it from the African-centered perspective, from your perspective. Like, who should I be reading for scholarship on this history? She said, oh, well, you have to read Nahum Sarna. He's the main guy. Gotta read him. So I did. And what does Sarna say? His exact word was paucity. There's a paucity of evidence that supports the enslavement of Jews in ancient Egypt. All right. I don't know if she intended me to read that. That's certainly not an analysis she incorporated into her own or whatever. But I was like, wow, okay, that's so we're on some nonsense all together here. It ends with, as you could predict, we have this meeting. Black people and Jews gathered at the table. Long story short, the same mythologies, half-truths come up. And as soon as black people said, well, what about Jews in Hollywood and banking? The Jews in the room fell apart. And it fell back into who's anti-Semitic, it was a complete, as they said in the military, clusterfuck. And as we left, I said, I told you. I told you. I told you. If Jews want to have a serious conversation about why black people or any other group feel how they feel or don't, whatever, then Jews need to have an internal discussion with themselves that is honest about the collective institutional relationship that Jews have had to black people. They need to ask themselves, why do they not promote the real Jewish revolutionaries in their history, as opposed to, at most, the handful of liberals that sided up with the civil rights movement? If you really want, Jews don't big up David Gilbert. The Black liberation struggle bigs up David Gilbert. Jews don't care about David Gilbert. Jews didn't get David Gilbert out of jail either, for all the power they have. Just as one quick example coming to my mind. Jews have not gathered institutionally to defend radical scholars even. It's not the Jewish community that has defended Chomsky, and certainly not Norman Finkelstein or anyone else you might come up with. It's not. So Jews would have to have a more honest conversation internally. Black people, same thing, honest conversations. Wherever we start with our views of Jews, how did we get there, and what do we really know about the situation? And then what ultimately of our analysis of it do we want to, how can we make use of it to get ourselves out of this? So, but from my perspective, the conservatives in each community are dominating the narrative, and they don't want that conversation. They don't want that. They don't want it. And the rawness of saying Jews are this and that, that's not a radical analysis. As you said yourself, Will, it's just raw. It's a raw, not unjustified, but just a raw response. So you're right. It's the same thing. I want a sophisticated analysis. I want an elevated, nuanced look at the world, because I think that's what is required here. Okay. All right, let me go through the comments real quick. Anything you want me to look at, please repost or and I'll try to get to it. I do have some time here. I want to hear your take. Are you going to watch the movie Armageddon Times? The movie looks at elderly Jewish man's relationship with his grandsons. I have never heard of this movie. I will write it down and I will watch it. Armageddon Times. Armageddon Times. What's the video? Max Blumenthal used to promote this little, it's like a, I want to call it like a low budget documentary you can find on YouTube about Jews, the Jewish community. It focused, I think, on the Jewish community in New York. I can't remember all of the but what I remember taking away from it is that it shows you what happens, like how conservative Jews deal with their own when it comes to politics, particularly those critical of Israel. I yeah, so I look at that, and someone else. I've just also ordered. What's the name of this book I've just ordered that a few of you actually reached out. I don't know if you all work together like that or if that was just coincidence. It was pretty cool, but a number of people said I should read, and it is on its way. Um, the book is titled 1996 by Gloria Naylor, a novel. It's a novel, and it's apparently about Black Jew Nation of Islam. I'm not entirely sure, but a number of you have said I need to read it, and it's on its way. So, um, let's see. Yeah, I mean, it's so obvious. I mean, it's so obvious. Exactly. I mean, the ADL is ridiculous. Thank you, Randall. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, and I'm not sure the context, but I get it. Like, there's legit, argument over who is doing what with these histories, and I think that there's certainly. And again, I grew up in the mythology. In my household, the mythology was very clear. Jews are not white, and they're not when like my mother. And again, it did take me some time. I remember as a young person, it took me time to catch up to the fact that not that few Jews are like my mother, and fewer white folks are like this either. Like that have this. It was total mythology. I mean, it was fantasy even, but this whole approach, she said, we're, like her approach to the world, the way they grew up, the way they experienced the world initially. Jews are not white. They did. It ended bad. I mean, it ended bad, like yelling, shouting, name calling. It was just ridiculous. And I was just like, I, I told you. I I just sat there like I told you, like you just watching a surreal breakdown in a room that you knew was coming. You knew it was going to happen. And I remember the sister that I remember when she first, like I could tell, like she couldn't wait. She was waiting her turn, but she couldn't wait. But the Jews in the Hollywood, and as soon as she went there, it wasn't even her fault. It was again, it was the defensiveness. Um, it was a defensiveness among the Jews in the room, and but it became, but again, like I feel like it was like a disingenuous thing. Like I honestly feel like that black woman only wanted to, she only showed up so she could tell Jews to their face that they're ruining the world, starting with their control of Hollywood. And that's sort of what I'm saying about all of this. Like there's a disingenuousness. It's not that she's unjustified, but it's like you're not really there to build. And the Jews, I was like, you're not really here to build either. You're here because you want, what you really want is for the perception among black anti-Semites to be fixed. And you want undue credit for some role in civil rights that isn't fair. And again, you don't big up David Gilbert and them. You want to big up some liberal this and that. So it's not even, it's but you don't also want an honest like, why did this woman bring it up? You can't just say any reference to Jews who are in Hollywood is anti-Semitic and we can't build. But that was very much the Again, everybody has to earn a living. I get it. But I don't understand. But that's not an analysis. That doesn't mean that the film is good. That doesn't mean that the history the film is telling is right. That doesn't mean that the negative impact that reverberates because of the messaging of the film isn't real either. So this idea that Regina King needed that job is nonsense. Regina King, if she didn't make One Night in Miami, if Woman King was not made, Regina King isn't going to suffer. Now, if you're talking about the grips and the gaffers and the bit players and the okay, but even them, I don't think their job is worth the damage institutionally that they participate in creating. By the way, the argument would be the same if I tried to defend the impact of higher education based on my participation in it. My job, even though I don't really see myself, like I don't participate in the academy the way Regina King participated in this case in Hollywood. But just to follow the same thought, my job is not worth the negative impact of the institution. So I think again, we wouldn't say that to the thief. We wouldn't say that to the person coming through your window stealing your TV. He got to eat. We would say you got to find another way to eat. That's all. But ultimately, I'm not judging their need to eat. In fact, if anything, I would be saying their need to eat is what creates a situation where they could be pliable and misused in this way. I'm just saying, if we're going to perform an analysis of the media product, the fact that they need a job is irrelevant. And that's the Mantan Manifesto that my former colleague and I wrote about, that was displayed, I think, quite well by Spike Lee and Bamboozled. That's the whole thing. And one of the first things they say is, come on now. Can't be mad at people getting a check. Tyler Perry employs Black people. Well, so did the plantation, as others have pointed out. So I also kind of take umbrage to the way that read. I didn't use your comment. You critiqued. You posted a critique, and I responded to it. So you're welcome. Just say thank you. Let me get. Where's my clip from? What's his name? Jack Nicholson on Few Good Men. Are you going to stand on that wall, Feinberg? Remember he said that? Talk about Jews. You didn't catch that in A Few Good Men? Or Weinberg? Are you going to stand on that wall, Officer Weinberg? No. You dirty little punk ass Jew. So just say thank you. that was the director's cut version, but that's what he was clearly saying. He said, "Are you going to stand on that wall?" So just say thank you. So Holly, just say thank you and keep it moving. Alberta Williams, King's assassin, Israelite. I thank you for the $2 super chat. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what you're saying there. I don't know that story, those details. Right. Obama had to have a job. Had to have a job. And how you going to get mad at the drones he dropped on everybody when he got that beautiful family, that beautiful Black family? Come on now. Come on now. Anyway, please do. I think we're about to wrap up here, but so please do support the channel any way you can. Keep the comments and the criticism coming. I appreciate it, most of it. And please go back as I have to and watch Sundays from the Ear Doctor last night. I think he had the white artists who would be invited to the barbecue. I got to check that out. And the Remix Morning Show comes back tomorrow. I'll be back Friday with another edition of I Mix What I Like with Geechee and Diallo on Friday. And then I don't know when it's going to happen, but stay tuned. Brother Kalanji and I have a special announcement coming for BPM. By the way, speaking of special announcements, speaking of announcements, speaking of stuff to coming up, defend the Black family. I'm telling you, even as they drone you into oblivion. Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. So anyway, thanks again. Big shout out to Jaleel Mutakim for coming on today, and thanks to Skeptical Mantis and the Discord community for bringing up the question and for ultimately sending me the screenshots of Mutakim's book. Since I can't almost get to almost any of my stuff right now, so that was very helpful, and I don't remember reading that. I must have missed that initially, or I wasn't focused on buying power at the time. Appreciate you, Toby, trying to do what I can. I appreciate you. And I think that's your part here is the most important part. It's not just the backgrounds. It's because there's plenty of people with various parts of their background. It's the politics that I was pushed towards that I really do appreciate in this. Even if I got pushed beyond the boundaries that my mother initially had for herself, she pushed me out of her own intellectual boundary as an encouragement, like onwards and upwards, and I appreciate that. I will always appreciate that about her, even if we've had some very difficult conversations, particularly around this issue. And that day, I mean, this is what I was doing on the way to the car. I told you. and then I added, and I'm never doing that again. I owed mom one. Never doing that again, boy. Thank you very much. I appreciate all of you, all the remixers. Appreciate you all. Definitely, folks, hit the like button. Share, subscribe. Let's make some noise about the channel. We are continuing to grow. I think it's amazing that we're over 20,000 and still growing. Again, I mean it. Like you see some of the nonsense I watch out here, and some of the references that I make, and we talked about it on the House of Dragons episode. Jackie and I think maybe more than Ear Doctor and maybe more than others watch a lot of stuff, and a lot of it's nonsense. So I know what's out there that both is meant to entertain, offer up a version of politics and news, and there's literally endless amounts of options, so that we've gotten 20,000 and growing to a platform like this with this arrangement of ideas and politics. It's very humbling, and I'm very impressed. So please, continue to not only congratulate yourself, but invite others to join you, because don't be so selfish that you get all this great stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah, and I, especially as she's at the end now and not coherent in that way. You know what I mean? I really, and I am at a moment where I can, my mother didn't, I mean, she, it was not the best hand dealt. And she did the best that I think could be expected. And if we get for real and overly personal, I'm not even gonna do that. I'm not even gonna do that. Like I'll say it this way though, we all have our views of interracial relationships and this mixed identity is changing day by day, and how people interpret it and whatever. But to my Black family, don't forget your role in this. and in these relationships, and we can't act like mixed people and white folks with black kids are just out here in a vacuum, or that that happened without the participation of some element of the black community. I think I'll leave it there. I think I'll leave that there for now. And yeah, that better be sarcastic. Because Trevor Noah's book and was more of a condemnation of his black mother and praise for his absent white father. That book is a mess. That book is a mess. He is a mess, but his presence is the mess of messes. Um, I actually can't believe the nonsense he wrote in that book, and the lens and the frame he put on on that whole struggle down there. No wonder he's on Comedy Central, and no wonder everybody wants to hear from him. And no wonder so many in his audience don't know what the hell is going on in this world. But yeah, and I don't know if it's confusion. I think, see, this is where I get Franny, I get suspicious. I think if you look between, on some level, there's a consciousness to this. There's a choice being made here. Go back. Oh my God, we got to get Raylena Joseph's Black Scholar article. This is like 20 years old now. And her critique of Rebecca Walker, legendary. Like, when people talk about Joy James's critique of Angela Davis, I put this up there with that. And what Raylena says that Rebecca was doing with the whole craze of the 1990s mixed kid memoir moment, that's the level of sophistication and nuance I aspire to. And the point is, people are making conscious decisions with their identities. Yeah, I'm more in this lane, I think, with the Trevors of the world. It's impossible to know, but man, I got to dig that article out again. What Raylena did with that joint was vicious, and it was so, because I remember reading Rebecca Walker's book and I couldn't put my finger on it, but I was like, what is going on here? You hate your black mother, but you kept her name because of the fame, and your white father's the hero. I was like, wait, that's anyway, that's my memory of my interpretation of it. I was like, this is not. And then people say, but it's the truth. And I'm like, but if that is true, you don't see how this is politically used in this environment? And the one time, I don't know how serious it was, that I thought I was being invited to a memoir of that kind. My response, I think, destroyed the possibility, because I was very clear in the response that I'm not doing that. This is not going to be my white mother saved me from my black father story. No, 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 no. My white heroic mother and my evil absent black father. No, 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 no. And I this is a good 20, 30 years ago as a younger man. And even then I was like, I see what you try to do. I see what you want. Know why. Know why. Ralina. Joseph. And I want to say early 2000s in the Black Scholar Journal, back when our man, I think Sundiata was running that joint then. That's it. Damn, y'all are quick and smart. That's it. The Tragic Mulatto. Boy. It's 2015. I thought it was way older than that. Wow, really? Really? I thought it was, wow. I felt like it was way older than that. Really? It's that new? Anyway, she killed it. Raylena killed it in that she so I don't know. I feel like it's some I think Liu Kang had it right. It's convinced. Um that's what I thought too. And what did she do in that movie? First of all, I remember when that trailer came out. Before the movie hit, I played the trailer in one of my classes and I said the title alone proves the movie's whack. Why are you addressing yourselves to white people? That's it. It's over. I was already done. And I remember I used to play to counteract that. There's a 7-minute video of Toni Morrison on 60 Minutes or some other platform where no, it's not 60 Minutes. It's is it C-SPAN where Bill or PBS where Bill, what's his name, the famous journalist, white man, asked her. I forgot who asked her the question. Maybe I don't remember. But the question was something like why do you only write black stories? That was it. Why do you only basically write black stories? Why don't you write about other people and other things? And her answer was so dope. Her answer was so dope. I'm not even going to do it justice, but her answer was basically like, look at the arrogance and the whiteness in your question. The idea that if I can't be a mature writer unless I address myself to you, who I'm paraphrasing, but like, who do you think you are? So when they said dear white people, I was like, this is already not going to work. And then yes, they did the same thing. Her black boyfriend was the problem. Her white boyfriend was the solution. Her absent black mother was the problem. And I know we never see the parents, but her black father was the angelic heroic figure. I was like, this is Vernon philosophy. As soon as I was like, I don't want to see, don't put no mixed kids on no screen. Don't put no mixed kids in no story. Think you telling my story. And I hate to say this because of the way that space treated me and my crew in the end of the day. And because I think his own politics he's really overrated in his politics because people like his movie. And I don't even know if people really, but whatever. But when Haile Garima dealt with this issue a little bit in the film Taser that features our homegirl, and I hope she's doing well. I thought they got it the most right, where you see the mixed kid sort of finding his blackness outside of his house and struggling at home with his white mother and his absent black father. I was like, personally, I've never seen something as close to my story on screen until I saw that. And that's in one little movie that Garima made. That's not even a major Hollywood film. So when I saw Dear White People, I said, good God, don't put me in any more movies. Vernon philosophy, me. We need again, the Vernon philosophy extends beyond the black community, even to us mixed folks. Don't put no mixed people in no movie. Now I will say Taser, Teza, which is, I think it's the word for morning dew. Isn't that what Taser is meant to mean? It was a good movie. I actually remember liking it more than Sankofa. I thought it was a good movie, more subtle, more subdued, but strong. And when he did, and the way he dealt with that, I mean, it was hateful. Like it's a critique of interracial relationships, but I thought it was sharp. It was sharp. I felt it, at least. I felt it. Yeah, I thought it was a little earlier. Yeah, no doubt, man. I mean, she, What series had an interesting ending? Oh yeah, and that's the other thing that I like about Raylena Joseph's work, also, by the way. And actually, one of my homeboys, I found one of his old master's thesis. One of my earliest friends from DC, black mother, Jewish father, and he wrote his master's thesis predating Raylena Joseph's work. He should probably get more credit for this, where he talked about the specifics of the African American, mixed race African American. And I know Joseph uses that phrase because having a black and white parent, black and white parenting is very different. Like a lot of like the Pew research and other, like they do interracial, they put all interracial groups. They'll often consider, you know, Puerto Rican, Japanese, along with, what I mean? They'll consider any grouping. And I'm like, that's not the same. This is very specific. Black and Puerto Rican is not mixed, maybe at all, but certainly not in the way that black and white, and then black and Jewish is even more specific and causes, I think, even more tension and whatever. Damn, I do have to go now. This is fun. I wish I had more time. I appreciate you all doing this. This is great. This is a lot of fun. I appreciate it. We've had a nice long show today. I will put the timestamps in so people can at least get to the Jalil piece on its own. And because definitely want to make sure that gets around. So please do share all of that, and let's if for no other reason, let's make sure our political prisoners continue to be heard from. Yeah, thank you, Freddie. Appreciate you. Right on. That used to be fun. There was a brief time I was having my hair braided and stuff. It was nice. It's a distant fantasy and memory now. Yeah. Now they, depending on who you're talking to, they might consider it a mixture, but it's just definitely not the same as yeah. That's what I'm saying. I know many Puerto Ricans are black. I'm just saying. I was just trying to point out that it's not the same as black white or black Jewish. So that's yeah, that's it. Drop another 20. What am I? I'm not a never mind. Let me just leave that alone. I did have braids. I did. There's a picture somewhere out there. This somewhere. Anyway. All right, good people. Appreciate you. Like, share, subscribe, do all the good things. I will catch you next time. Thanks again to Jalil, everybody, Josh and Aaliyah for helping support the show, the Discord community. The haters, appreciate you too. Catch you next time. Peace, because only if you're willing to fight for it, like Fred Hampton used to say. Catch you next time.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.